Okay, we continue our journey into Stoicism by going through the Enchiridion in the translation How to Be Free by Professor A.A. Long. I put a affiliate link in the description. If you were thinking of picking up the book, feel free to use that link, but of course, it's up to you, and whatever you do is not my concern as a Stoic, because I cannot influence you. So, short chapter, but a great one, and one that it's as relevant now, I would say, maybe even, well, I wouldn't say more relevant, but very, very relevant to us, just as it was very relevant in Epictetus' time. Chapter 28. If someone in the street were entrusted with your body, you would be furious, yet you entrust your mind to anyone who happens to insult you and allow it to be troubled and confused. Aren't you ashamed of that? We live in a time of insults. People get insulted all the time. People feel insulted all the time, rightfully or wrongfully, but insult has become an enormous thing. People get insulted all the time. And insults hurt. And of course now we have all these platforms that allow us to be insulted easily. There's Twitter and Instagram and YouTube and all these things, Facebook and heaven knows what. And people get insulted all the time. And I just said it hurts. Well, it hurts because you let it hurt, right? It doesn't in itself hurt because the thing is just words, right? Words that someone speaks and they may or may not hurt you, that's up to you. If you let it hurt you, then it will hurt, and if you let it not hurt you, then it won't, and it's really that simple. Marcus Aurelius, I'll elaborate on that, but Marcus Aurelius in the Meditations says a very similar thing to Epictetus, which I've always loved. Often have I marveled how each one of us loves himself above all men, yet sets less store by his own opinion of himself than by that of everyone else. In other words, we're always very full of ourselves, we love ourselves so much, but we very easily give other people control over us by letting them insult us, and then we respond well. We respond by feeling insulted. And we respond with anger, anxiety, aggression. But all of that, at the end of the day, is up to us. We get insulted. And again, you choose to let that insult get to you or not. And I think I've given this this analogy before, but Epictetus gives a nice analogy in the discourses, the sort of the full transcriptions of his lectures. And when he talks about insults, I think there are two things that are very nice that he says. One is, think of a rock. You stand in front of a rock, you insult it. What does the rock do? Nothing, right? The rock doesn't care whether you insult it. And that's kind of how you should approach this. If people insult you, if you let it get to you, their insult had an effect. And they win. They win. Because you're the one who gets worked up, who gives assent, in the Stoic sense of the term, who gives assent to the negative emotion. You choose to let that sort of overtake you, and as a result, you feel bad. You have to let go of that rationality. Another great example of Epictetus in the Enchiridion is when he says, if someone speaks badly of you, like someone comes up to you and says, well, this person said something bad about you, your response should be, and this is a nice illustration of Stoic humor, well, tell that person that he doesn't really know me that well, because if he did, he would have mentioned way more of my bad traits, right? Paraphrasing a little bit, but that's what it boils down to. And I think that is very crucial in our day and age, where, again, people feel insulted all the time. People get insulted all the time, because again, we have all these platforms, right? Easy to get insulted. But at the end of the day, you're in charge. And what both of these gentlemen, Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, say here is, you give other people power over you, you value their opinion of you more than you value your own opinion. Because if you would pass someone on the street and another person would say, now this person is now your property, you would be upset, right? Epictetus says this. You would be furious, yet you entrust your mind to anyone around who happens to insult you and allow it to be troubled and confused. So your body will not give up. You say, no, that's insane. I'm not your slave. That doesn't make any sense. But then other people, all they need to do is insult you, and you give your mind to them. Because you get angry with them, you get upset, you get anxious, you get aggressive, all negative things that you would like to avoid, but they have evoked that. All they need to do, insult you, done. So you choose to give people power over you by letting them insult you. Problematic. How to deal with that? Well, I've learned this the hard way, having a YouTube channel. There are a few things you can do. Often, the best thing when someone insults you is not to respond. And again, stoically, you're in control of how you respond, right? So, and we've talked about this before, so I don't want to go into this all over again, but you are in charge of how you respond. So in other words, you can think, remember what we talked about in another video, you will have a proto-passion. You're likely to have that immediate flash of anger or maybe sadness. That is normal. Everyone would have that. That is not within your control. But after that, the actual passion, now we would probably say emotion, but literally what the Stoics were talking about, and I mean, I use the word literally in the correct sense. Literally, what they were talking about is passions. That's what the word they use means. A passion is a little different. A passion you are in control of. So you can't say, wait, it's okay. This is not something for me to get angry about. But how do you get to that stage? Well, as I said, the easiest step is not to respond. But that doesn't always work. Be prepared that if you do respond, you may end up in a long discussion with someone. So I typically choose not to respond, but occasionally I think this is a bit too much. This is something I will respond to, and I'm prepared for the consequences. I can always end the discussion. At any point in time I can say, okay, I'm dealing with an idiot, end of discussion. I won't respond anymore. And as long as you can do that, and that's not easy. That's something I had to learn over the course of multiple years. Once you get to that stage, things become easier. Because you can say, okay, I've said what I wanted to say. Clearly this person is falling into childish argumentation. Okay, end of discussion, case closed. How else can you deal with it? The best way I found is with humor, a sense of humor. And Epictetus uses that in his example. When a person speaks badly of you, you say, well, if he doesn't really know me, because if he would have mentioned a lot more of my bad traits, right? That's humor. That's a humorous response, and that diffuses things very quickly. William Irvine wrote a superb book, and I'm struggling with the title right now. I think it's A Guide to the Good Life. Professor William Irvine. It's a book about Stoicism in everyday life, and a superb book. Highly recommended. He describes his own response to insults, and he calls that insult pacifism. He says, okay, so basically the simplest thing to do is simply not respond. Okay, so when someone offends you, just don't respond. And see how they respond, because especially in a face-to-face situation, they will be shocked, right? Because they expect some sort of response from you. But if you just say, and they just continue, that may aggravate them. They may try again, but it's not the response they expect, and that works quite well. Response pacifism. The best thing by far I found is humor. And Professor Irvine gives some really sweet examples in his book of humorous responses that he has used. So, for example, at some point, he runs to one of his colleagues, and the colleague says that in his latest book or paper, whatever it was, he's going to cite the work of Professor Irvine. And Professor Irvine is happy about this, as academics are. You get cited, that's an exciting thing, because that means your work is put out there again. So he says, oh, that's really nice. And I have to paraphrase a little bit because I'm recalling this from memory. but then his colleague says, yeah, I've not yet decided if you are just misinformed or downright evil. So that's an insult, right? That's a clear insult right there. And this is something that academics do. They're continuously at odds with each other. So Professor Irvine, of course, feels this flash of anger and proto-passion like everyone would have, but then he collects himself. He does not give that negative emotion assent. He says, no, not something to get angry about. And he responds along the lines of, well, maybe you should just point out that I am both, because I'm actually way worse than you think. Another example that I absolutely love, I may enjoy that one even more than this one, is that he points out that at some point in time someone tells him that they think he's quite arrogant, and he says, I am. It's often not until noon that I realize that there are other people alive on Earth. And I think that's a fantastic response. You get insulted and you make a joke out of it. And that takes all the wind out of the sails of the insulter, because they think, I got him. I'm going to upset him. I'm going to say this. You see this with trolls all the time. You can picture them behind the keyboards when they do this. Like, this is really going to get under their skin. And if you make a joke out of it, it's basically a slap in their face, because the insult didn't work. You're not insulted. In fact, you laugh it off. Self-deprecation often works very well. Make a simple joke out of it, poke fun at yourself, and the insult is gone. And you're not angry because you've made it funny, and that is the best cure to negative things. See the humor in it. And again, I think that both Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius here raise the same point. Be careful. People are so quick to give other people power over them, and I speak from my own experience. This happened to me all the time. I would get a negative comment on YouTube and it would upset me, and I would respond angrily, and I would feel this flash of anger, and it would last for hours, and it was very unpleasant, not just to me, but to people around me too. And it's become a lot easier. It's become a lot easier for me to now think, okay, there's another one. And typically I don't even respond anymore. But sometimes I have to, because I feel like I should. And I try to make a joke out of it. And it works wonders. Be careful. Be careful you don't give other people power over you so easily. You let other people get under your skin so easily, because you're giving them control over your mind, and you should be in control of your mind because it is your mind, right? So, again, stoically speaking, you feel an initial flash of anger or being hurt or feeling sad about the insult. That's normal. A Stoic would call that a proto-passion, but how you can't control that. That's normal. That will happen to everyone. That's a reflex. You can't control the reflex. But after that, it's up to you to give assent or not give assent to the insult. So you can give assent to the negative emotions, or you can say, I am a rock, etc. It doesn't matter. Alright? It doesn't matter. Insult me all you want. I genuinely do not care. The only exception is when someone raises a valid point. And that happens too. They can say something insulting, but they can be right. But if you control that after that flash of anger, you look at the point rationally, you can decide whether what the other person says actually makes sense. And if it does, they're right. And now Epictetus would say, if they are right, why would you get upset? They're right. If they are wrong, why would you get upset? They are wrong. Right? Interesting way to look at things. Okay, I hope this was useful. Don't let other people control your mind. Your mind is yours. You're in charge. Alright? And that's all there's to it. I hope this was some food for thought, and I'll gladly see you next time. Bye bye.